it's it's an interesting day. Um, I think I don't know what this is ultimately going to end up being. I kind of have an idea of what I want it to be, and I will talk through that um, over the course of however long this ends up being. But uh, I guess let me introduce myself. My name is Swale. Um, I'm a lot of things based on what I've done in life. Um, I guess if you get a glimpse of one part of my life, you might think I'm one thing, and then you see the other thing, and then he might be something different. And he might be something else. Um, and that's why it's always difficult for me to kind of explain who I am, because the more you know about who I am, it almost feels like I'm all over the place, when in reality I'm not. Um, I think what's interesting is I'm guided by or led by two things in particular: human creativity and that leading to innovation. So my path through life has been a trail of creativity and innovation, and how they kind of formalize or manifest into this thing. I think that's the best way I could describe myself. I tell people, as much as I am known for being a thought leader in technology or things related to technology, when I don't necessarily describe myself as a technologist. I want to say I'm a creative whose creativity takes shape in the form of technology and innovation. I think I'm comfortable saying that. Uh, but this space, whatever this is not intended to be about me. It's more about us, you and I, and this quest for finding our creative self. I think there's tons of content online about everything else, but there isn't a space for creativity to be discussed. Um, there isn't a space for the content. There isn't a space for the conversation. There isn't a space for the community. And I want this to be that space, a space where individuals who are on that creative journey, right, whether artistic or non-artistic, and that's one of the things I want to kind of emphasize as well. I think uh, we've been led to believe that creativity has to take shape in the form of art, and art in a traditional sense. If you're not a dancer, you're not a painter, you don't know how to draw, a lot of us feel that we aren't creative because, again, our creativity doesn't showcase itself in those particular mediums. And I'm here to debunk that, for lack of a better word, because we are all creative. And I'm saying that not because I want that to be the case. I'm saying that because that is a fact. Creativity is innate to human beings. And I think we start off with all this creativity. And I'm saying that knowing that we don't lose it, it's still there. But as we conform to this, the status quo that society has shaped for us, and we fit into these boxes that society has predefined for us, we get out of touch with our creativity. Not lose, but out of touch with our creativity. And it is no fault of your own if you kind of just exist in this world where you just find your little pocket and you fit in it. And I think a lot of the times those pocket are spaces that existed, and then naturally we kind of just fall into it. I think, but the people who fall into those pockets are led to believe that they're not as creative as the rebels, the people who are actively in pursuit of their creativity. And I want to talk about that a little, but before we kind of dive a little deeper into that, there's a few things I want to do. One of the things that has always helped me in my creative journey is just finding my mindfulness, being self-aware, being aware of myself. So anytime I go into the world or I face the world, I wake up and I have to take on a new day. One of the things that gets me in that space is just this mindfulness, focusing on my breath, and then starting the day with a conscious awareness of the now, the present. And how I generally do that is through, against mindfulness, and then focus on my breath. And I tend to go to this every time I'm faced with an opportunity to be creative. Anytime I'm in an uncomfortable position, anytime I want to be my best self in any given moment, I lean on mindfulness. And that's one of the things I go to. And it's for me, it's as simple as just focusing on my breath. And I want to start with that. I want us to start with a focus on our breath. So if you don't mind, if this is reaching your ear, I'd want us to kind of spend the next 10 seconds just focusing on our breath, being present in this moment, the right now. And we're starting. And maybe that was our counter. We're here, and we're present in this moment. And one thing I like to do to immediately follow that is give myself a visual puzzle or a brain teaser to get myself ready for the moment and get my mind focused. I'm trying to think of something or a puzzle I could ask that obviously you can't visually see it. If you're looking, if you're viewing this, the video of this, you'll see me, but not necessarily a puzzle. But I can come up with one now. All right, I have one. What tastes better than it smells? What tastes better than it smells? I want you to think about that. I'll give you a couple seconds to think about it, but I'll give you the answer maybe later in this, whatever this is. I guess it's feeling like a podcast right now, but I don't want to say that. At the end of this, hopefully I'll say it, and if I don't, it'll give you something to kind of do some research about. Like I said, I want this to be a space for the creatives, not the conscious creatives, or yes, even the conscious creatives, but those who are still unaware or unsure of what their creativity is or what it can be. And how did this all come about? So I want to say in the middle of the pandemic, I find that I'm my most creative when I'm in uneasy and unknown situations. But in the middle of the pandemic, I had a thought where I felt like, similar to the feeling I'm having today, that the world needed more creativity. And I did what is now known as the 60-second creativity series, where I spent, in 30 seconds, I explored an idea of creativity, and I posted it on social media, and it got some traction. And it's available if you're on Instagram, or I think it might be on a few other social medias. But if you were to look for that hashtag 60-second creativity series, you'll find them. And that made me want to explore that further. I contemplated writing a book, maybe. But we consume content a lot via audio and visual content, and I wanted to kind of create something that's more easily accessible, easier to consume, and I think this is what this could possibly be. My ultimate goal is beyond just creating that space to help you reconnect with your creativity, and then as we go through this over time, help you sharpen that. So you see yourself not only as the creative being that you are, but can tap into your creativity on demand. And we'll work through that. What that ultimately ends up being, I guess time will tell, but that is something that I want us to kind of work through. I said earlier about this idea of conforming to the societal norm and the status quo of what the expectations of society is, and how we fit in it, and how we mold our lifestyle to fit into this thing. And it made me think about it's almost like a conundrum where society forces us to conform to this idea of this less creative lifestyle, and then in turn measures us against people who have rebelled against this same structure and status quo, and sought to live out their creative lives and creative expressions. And because we're measured against the thing that, or these individuals that have rebelled against society, it's weird because society wants you to be something, but does not create an environment for you to be that thing. And if you look at the most creative individuals, or the ones you deem are the most creative, it's almost like they're rebels. They're outcasts. Like, you didn't want this for me, and I wanted it for myself. And I went against the grain and I did this thing. You didn't create a channel for me to express myself. So I made a way. And I think it doesn't have to be those extremes, honestly. And I think once we learn to hone and tap into our creativity, I think we can be our creative selves without having to run away to be able to do that. And that's what I want a part of this thing to be. I think a huge part of this journey is going to figure out how best we can tap into our creativity. And creativity, as I defined it, is merely intuition. And at its core, that is all it means to me. And I'll tell you why. Because I see creativity as a process. And I'll lay out the process, and then we can spend time kind of talking through it. But this is the creative process that I've, after years of research, studying human creativity and how we interact, how we express ourselves, I've narrowed it down to these 3 processes. The first is using your intuition to establish a first impression. Then your awareness to make a connection, and then your imagination to expand upon the possibilities. And that in itself is the creative journey, the creative process. And once you're able to master that, I think you're able to be creative in any given moment. But at the core of it, or at the the base of it is intuition. If you ask yourself, like for me, if you were to ask me, who is or the most creative person I know, I may say my kids, my children. But it's not specific to my children, it's just children in general. And as much as creativity is this playfulness, which it is, and children live a playful existence for the most part, it can be directly tied to intuition. There's enough research and evidence to show that children explore the world more intuitively than adults do. And I don't think that that's a coincidence, that children are deemed more creative than adults. But how do you tap into your intuition? And I always tell people, it's through your five senses. Beyond just the awareness of them. I mean, I know you can touch, you can taste, you can smell, you can hear. I'm talking an extension of that, like a deeper relationship, more an intimate relationship. Because I believe if you develop an intimate relationship with your five senses, both together and in isolation, you can unlock your sixth sense, which is intuition. And then when you get to that point and you hone in on that particular skill set, two things happen. You're more conscious, you're more aware, the world just seems more full of life. You break down the layers of life because you're embracing things or interacting with things differently now. It's almost like a heightened interaction. And then two, you're able to find out which particular sense or which specific sense speaks directly to your soul. And I think when you get to that point, you become your most creative self. There's a reason why photographers can capture specific moments in time, because they have an eye for it, because they can speak to you through pictures. There's a reason why chefs can create such amazing cuisines with tastes that are layered, because they have exceptional ability to transform that taste into feeling. And that is them showcasing their creativity. For me, it's always been technology. It's always been innovation. Yes, when I was a kid, I may have played an instrument or two, but it's never been the art that my art. It's never been the arts that my art showcased itself. I remember I said a statement once. I said, art doesn't have to be artistic. As simple as it sounds, I think it's a powerful statement. Because I know lawyers who are doing creative things in their particular space. I know doctors doing creative things. I sit and I watch the garbage men as they pass through my neighborhood, how they find creative and efficient ways to do the things that they do. And I think that's remarkable. Creativity can showcase itself or manifest itself or showcase itself in multiple different areas and niches. And I think once we tap into that, we understand it. And I had mentioned that it has a lot to do with your five senses and then unlocking that sixth sense, which is intuition. So how do you go about doing that? I think a lot of the times we take our senses for granted, and we don't appreciate the complexities of it. And I'd done all this research. I spent all this time just studying creative beings and in my own life. And it wasn't until I started to take a layered approach to my senses that I realized how powerful they all were. And I used to do, I still do these exercises, but one exercise that I do that I want you guys to start doing is forcing yourself to start to see the world a layer beyond the immediate. How do you do that? The next time you go to touch something, don't tell me what it, or don't tell yourself what it feels like. Tell yourself how it makes you feel. Make a connection. Similarly, when you smell something, don't tell me what you're smelling. Tell me how it makes you feel. I remember I did a design course at Columbia, and one of the questions we were asked was, what does Christmas smell like? And I'd never thought about it in that way. But in that moment, I sat and I thought about, what does Christmas smell like? And for me, Christmas smells like apples. Every time I smell apples, I think of Christmas. And I sat back and I was like, I wondered why. And then I remembered, I grew up in Belize. And it's a tropical country. Apples don't grow. There's seasonal fruits, especially for us. And the season it would come would be around the Christmas winter time. We'd get boatloads of apples being imported into the country, but it would only be around Christmas time when I was growing up. So every time I would smell apples, it would be around Christmas time, and I never lost that. So now the smell of apples gives me a feeling of Christmas, and that is how I want you to. I wanted to kind of use that knowledge and kind of embrace the world under that same thing. So that, again, the next time you hear something, you know how sometimes you hear songs and it takes you back to a moment in time? That's your creativity taking shape. There's some nostalgia associated with it, but you understand the creative concept. And as you're building and creating things, it's about making that connection. When intuition gets you to a place, and then your awareness establishes that connection, it's then on you to kind of use your imagination to kind of expand upon it. And I think that in itself, going back to the point I was making, that is the creative process. And we all have that. It's innate to us. It's almost, it's our heartbeat. It's there the moment that first heartbeat happens within an embryo that's forming. Your creativity is right there along with it, and I want us to all be connected back to it. We are inherently creative beings, and I know we all have our purposes, and I've kind of went back and forth what I think mine is, and I don't know that it's one thing, but I want to bring creativity back to the world. I want to reconnect you with yours. I want to continue to explore mine. I want us to approach the world from a creative standpoint. And hopefully this makes us more self-aware, and that leads to more empathy. I think the best way you can You cannot. It's difficult for you to empathize with other people if you don't even aren't self-aware to empathize with yourself. And those are conscious thoughts and things that we have to like constantly work on. But it is possible, and ultimately, that's what I want to accomplish, right? For us all to live in creative bliss, but kind of tap into our creativity and then just use that to kind of guide us through this thing called life. Like I said, I don't know what this is ultimately going to end up being. But I want it to be a space for you and I to show up and be our creative self, to reconnect with our creativity, to live within our creativity, to experience the world through our creativity. And I think it's possible. I don't want this to end up being longer than I originally intended. I think this is the start of what could possibly be plenty of future conversations, intimate conversations. There's a reason why I'm in black, surrounded by black, because it is the color that connects me to myself, to my creativity. It's inspiring. When I need inspiration, I do one of two things. I either travel to new places or I go to black. And I've found that those things work for me over time, experimentation and going through that process itself. But I want to help you find yours. And that could be a color, it could be a smell, it could be a taste. And hopefully, at the end of this journey, you'll be able to. And that is the hope. Tongue. That's the answer to the riddle that we started off with. What tastes better than it smells? Your tongue. I appreciate your time. Go be great. Go be creative. Go live a creative existence. And hopefully this turns into something and we can come back here and talk about our growth. I want it to be where if ever you come back to what this would be considered episode 1 and in a conscious thought realize where we started and where you are now, you can see your creative growth, and your creativity is showcasing itself in whatever profession you choose to have. And yeah, we'll go from there. Thank you for sitting here and engaging with me. I look forward to more of these. All right.